There was a luminescent glow surrounding Lincoln's laptop. Not the glow from the monitor itself, but the glow from the 10 beaming young faces crowded around it. Lincoln and his sisters were gathered around the couch, engaging in a video call with their beloved eldest sibling, Lori. "You excited for this weekend, sis?" asked Luna. "I am ever," cried Lori. "I'm always down to spend Halloween with you guys. What do you have planned?" "Oh, the typical stuff," said Lincoln. "I'm going trick-or-treating with Clyde and the gang. Luann's going to her first high school Halloween party, and she's letting Lynn tag along." "Tag along?" protruded Lynn. "Please, you know I'll end up being the life of the party. I'm gonna drink until I skunk." That remark prompted a little giggle from Lori, but she decided to humor Lynn and let the remark pass without further comment. "The twins, Lisa and Lily, are going to the pumpkin patch," Lincoln continued. "To go pick out a jack-o'-lantern?" asked Lori. "Good guess, but no," said Lisa. "We wish to see an empirical evidence of the statement of botanical monster that Lana insists is real. What do you say its name was?" "The Great Pumpkin!" exclaimed Lana. "Every year he rises out of the pumpkin patch to—" Yes, you've repeated that story in nauseam once again. I'll believe it when I see it." "Oh, you will. Just you wait." Lincoln smiled, ruffled Lana's hair, and proceeded to give Lori the rundown. "Luna and the Moonguts are going to do a concert to raise money for the UNICEF. Lenny's going to the mall to take advantage of all the Halloween sales they have going on. Oh, and Lucy's setting up another of those haunted houses." "Aw, how cute!" yelled Lori. "Sounds like you are going to have a fun night ahead of you. Gosh, I cannot wait to come home and see you all your faces in person." As soon as she was done with her sentence, she noticed that the smiles on the monitor disappeared. Lucy's. "Cute?" she asked. "It's not the reaction I was expecting or hoping for." "Oh, Lucy, don't take it personally," said Lori. "Your haunted houses are a lot of fun. You put so much creativity and work into them." "They're supposed to be scary," said Lucy, with a hint of tension entering normally her monotonous voice. "And I'm sure they are scary to some kids, but I'm 18 and I'm in college. Vampires and witches and bats don't really scare me like they used to. That's all." That video chat went on for a couple more minutes, and for the duration of the video chat, Lucy never spoke another word, and her gloomy frown didn't budge. As soon as Lori logged off, the small goth stood up and began to walk away in silence. "Luce, are you okay?" asked Lincoln, knitting his brow. "Look, I'm sure Lori didn't mean any offense." "It doesn't matter what she meant," said Lucy. "What matters is I need to up my game." As she approached the stairwell, Lincoln and the other sisters engaged worried looks. "Well, if you need help, just let us know, okay?" She looked over her shoulder and gave them the curt nod before proceeding to the second floor. As promised, Lori arrived at the house the following Saturday evening, long just the day before Halloween. As she stepped out of the car, she was built with the surprise absence of spooky decor. Granted, it wasn't Halloween yet, but the Laos tend to prefer to get a jump start on decorating a few days in advance. On top of that, it was oddly quiet, lacking the calipponi that usually characterize it. She opened the front door, expecting to see at least 3 or 4 faces ready to greet her. Instead, the only one in their line of sight was Lucy, who was lying on the living room couch. Watching TV upon hearing the arrival, she sat up and gave her a wave. "Oh, hi, Lucy. Where's everyone else?" "Most of them are already in bed." Lucy raised an eyebrow at her. "Already? But it's only 8:30. "We all want to make sure we're well rested for tomorrow," said Lucy. "Well, okay, I guess that makes sense. But where are all the decorations? I thought you were doing a haunted house this year." Lucy stared at her in silence before responding with a tense, "I changed my mind." The austere nature of that tone inspired a twinge of guilt in Lori's heart. "So, what are you doing instead?" she asked. "I don't know. Maybe I'll go trick-or-treating with Lincoln. Speaking of which, he's in the kitchen practicing his magic. Go say hi to him." Lori nodded, walked into the kitchen, hoping that the interaction with the cheery little brother would help lift her spirits. She found him clad in his magician's suit, fiddling with the deck of cards. "Oh, hi, Lori," he said, flashing her a smile. "Glad to see you home. Don't mind me. I'm just rehearsing for the show tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Lori asked. "I thought you said you and Clyde were going trick-or-treating." "Oh, we are. I'm going to make sure as magician this year that me and my tricks are going to earn me the ton of wheelbarrows of candy." Beaming, he picked up a deck of cards, shuffled it, and fanned it out in front of her. "Pick a card. Any card." She decided that there was no harm in humoring him. She plucked a card from her deck. To her confusion, it wasn't a typical playing card. Instead, it had a picture of her face on it, with an L, where the value of the suit should be. What the heck? Is this the same joke I wasn't let on? "Lincoln, what kind of deck is this?" Before she could finish her last word, she looked up from the card to find that Lincoln had vanished from the premises. Her eyes darted all around the kitchen, but there was no sign of him anywhere. "Aren't you going to finish the trick?" she called out, but to no answer. Weird. Maybe his disappearance was a trick. Lori, quite bemused, stuffed the card into her pocket and walked back into the living room, only to find that Lucy had disappeared as well. She disappears all the time, so that's not surprising. As she said that, the house was far more than tranquil than she was used to. Even the hour leading up to bedtime, she would expect her to at least hear ambient of noise. As she walked up the stairs to the second floor, she could hear the weary creak of every step, clear and unobstructed. Now, upon reaching to the top, she ran into Luann, who was just dawdling in the hallway. "Oh, hi, Lori. Welcome home." "Hi, Luann," she responded, giving her a light wave. "Say, do you know where Lincoln and Lucy went? I saw them when I first got here, but they sort of disappeared on me." Luann narrowed her eyes. She hummed, rubbing her chin and piercing her lips before glancing to the left. "Well, they're not to my left." She then turned her head right. "They're not to my right either." "Okay, Luann, where are you going with this?" She then tucked her head forward, struggling as she said, "And they're not in front of me. Let's check the back." Crack. Luann grabbed herself by the head, and with one sickening sharp motion, she twisted 180 degrees, producing a sharp snap that made Lori flinch. A split second later, her arms fell to her sides as she toppled on the floor like a Jenga tower. On the floor she lied. Her body was face down, her face, eyes bulging out, jaw dangling open, pointed towards the ceiling. Lori, shuddering, clamped a hand over her mouth. She then pretty much just clamped her head. She just decided to try to feel the wave of nausea coming. "Luann," she uttered. She knelt down, holding her hand, while the other reached for her phone, ready to dial 911 to moment's notice. "Luann, are you okay?" As soon as she got close, however, Luann's formerly lifeless face burst forth with a round of shrieking laughter, an octave higher, more maniacal than her usual laugh. Lori recoiled a scream and then made a mad dash towards the first door she found open, to which it was Luna and Luann's room. To her minor relief, she found Luna inside, resting on her beanbag. "Oh, thank God you're here," Lori said, catching her own breath from the previous scream. "Would you mind telling me what's gotten your roommate?" Luna slowly turned her head to face her eldest sister, staring with the same listless, half-lidded eyes. "The real question is, you should be asking, what has gotten into me?" Before Lori could even ask what she meant by that, she saw something trying to squeeze its way through Luna's lips. At first she thought it was her tongue, until it managed to pop out of her mouth and fall to the floor, started skittering across the carpet. It was a roach. Lori felt her nausea building back up again, which only intensified for a second insect wriggled out of Luna's mouth. I guess that was it," said Luna. "Makes sense. I always was a Beatles fan." She then opened her mouth wider, and a crowd of centipedes, ants, ladybugs, and other creepy crawlies started pouring out and filling the bedroom. "Ew, ew, ew, ew!" Lori thought, as she ran out and slammed the bedroom door shut, in hopes that she could at least keep the swarm contained. Afterwards, she then charged into her own bedroom, hoping she could at least find some solace in her own familiar place. She got inside, shut the door behind her, and collapsed onto her bed, giving herself a moment to take a breather and to try and process everything that's happened since she got home. Just as she was getting comfortable, however, she heard a faint, high-pitched noise coming from the far end of the room. She picked her head up to see Lenny facing the opposite wall and giggling. Squeaking? She wasn't quite sure what to call the noise she was making. Oh, great. She's acting freaky too? She got up from her bed and took a cautious measure of the steps forward to her dizzy little sister. As she did, she tried to convince herself that it was just mundane explanation as to what she was doing. Maybe she was looking at something funny on her phone, or reading a humorous book. Nope. As soon as Lori got within 6 feet away from her, she swerved around, revealing a leathery face covered in bloody welts, pupilless eyes, and obnoxious grin. Lori stared at her, frozen in her tracks, paralyzed by fear and shock. "We're going to get you. We're going to get you. Not another peep. Time to go to sleep," she sang in an otherworldly, un-Lenny-like voice. In a panic, Lori grabbed her shoulders and moved to the floor. As soon as she hit the bottom, she let loose of blood-curdling cackles, high enough to cut glass. While Lori was again bolted out of the room and shut the door behind her, she scarcely had time to catch her breath when all of a sudden the lights in the hallway went out. In fact, all the lights in the house seemed to be out, as for her entire surroundings were shrouded in darkness, with no signs of light coming from the bathroom or from downstairs. Trembling, she pulled out her phone out of her pocket and switched on the flashlight. Guys?" she croaked, talking tentative at the steps that shone the light in every direction. "What's going on? This isn't funny." As she crept through the hallway with her heart in her throat, she heard a light thumping sound noise coming from Lisa and Lily's room. She dreaded what the possibilities are from the source of the noise could be, but still obligated to investigate. In one of the cases, her youngest sisters might need her help. After taking a deep breath, she placed her shaking head on the doorknob, twisted and pushed it open. The thumping grew louder as she could now tell it was coming from above her head. She shined her flashlight onto the ceiling and nearly fainted from what she saw. It was Lily, clinging onto the ceiling, banging her head against it. "Lily, get down from there this instant," she cried, reaching for the toddler. "How are you even doing that?" "Gravity is a social construct, Lori," said Lisa, whose words, curiously, was now coming from over her head. She shined her flashlight to the left and was met with the even more disturbing sight. Lisa, too, was on the ceiling. But unlike Lily, she was fused to it. Her skin melded to the surface to the point where it was impossible to tell where her face ended and the ceiling began. Or at least it seemed that way. "You've meddled yourself onto the ceiling," she added. "Speaking of which, I'd like to get down. Could you, dear, and get a butcher knife?" Lori shrieked in fear at that very thought and fled out of the bedroom, this time not even bothering to shut the door behind her. She briefly entertained the idea of calling the police, before asking herself how would they be able to help. On top of that, her ears perked up at another sound that she felt that emanated from her attention. The muffled sounds of raspy sobbing coming from the twins' room. "Oh gosh, poor Lana. She must have been terrified as I am." She opened the door, started to shine her flashlight for the room in search of Lana. But before she could find her, though, Lola's voice piped in. "Hi, Lori," she sang. "I'm so glad to see you again. Check out my new dolly." She shined her flashlight in the direction of Lola's voice. She found her seated at a miniature table. The opposite boy to her age was neatly combined with blonde hair, who seemed to be slumping in his chair. Upon further inspection, she found out that to her horror, the boy's skin had been drained of color. His eyes and mouth were hanging open lifelessly. "He's the best dolly ever," said Lola. "So be quiet and respectful, and he never talks back. Want to hold him?" Lori gripped her phone and punched its password, ready to call the police. But before her ears once again picked up the heart-wrenching noise of Lana's sobbing. Okay, first I'll get Lana out of here, then call the cops. She then turned to the other side of the room. Just as she had suspected, Lana was kneeling down on the floor, trembling. As she drew closer, she noticed that there's something mushy, gloppy mess on the floor surrounding her little sister. She also noticed that Lana was carrying a particularly pungent stench, even worse than her usual musk. So she peered over closer and nearly vomited. Lana's lips and cheeks were covered in blood, fur splintered, bones, feathers, and at her feet were Charles, Cliff, Geo, and Walt. Each of them were mutilated, almost everything being not beyond recognition, with bite-sized chunks missing from their torsos and limbs. "I'm sorry," Lana whimpered. I was just so hungry." Lori took a step back, now feeling growing uneasily and erratic. She then had to avert her eyes to the grisly sight before her. At least she could reach her limit and barf all over already rancid-smelling floor. It was at this point she regretted ever heading out to college, knowing that this sad became her precious family while she was gone. But she was trying to imagine where could they all have gone wrong. Two strong hands grabbed out from her and behind, pulled her out into the hallway. She screamed only to have her scream cut short when whose hands clamped itself over her mouth. "Shh, she'll hear you," came a harshly whispered voice from behind. Lori turned herself to find a frazzled, sweaty-looking Lynn standing before her. "Oh, thank God, someone is in this house is still sane," Lori whispered back. "Who is she, though?" "Lucy," Lynn said gravely. "I don't know what kind of curse she put on this house, but trust me, I am just freaked out as you are." Suddenly the front of Lynn's jersey was torn open, and a ghostly white hand burst forth, resulting in a hole. Its fingers coiled around its still beating heart. "Too late," she choked out, collapsing onto the floor as the heart skipped out of the hand's grasp and started sliding down the stairs, leaving a trail of blood behind. Lori wanted to scream again, but this time her terror was completely paralyzed to her larynx. She couldn't cry, she couldn't call for help. She could scarcely even breathe. "Check your pockets," called a familiar monotone voice that seemed to be coming from her every direction. Trembling, Lori slipped her hand into her pockets to find her cargo shorts. Her left hand had been brushed up against a playing card she had drawn from Lincoln's deck earlier, and as she pulled it, the card still had her face on it, but now it was etched into a tombstone. It was then Lori's fear finally overloaded her brain, forcing it to shut down. She dropped onto the floor, her eyes fell shut, and she fell into unconsciousness. Lori awoke several hours later in the daze. She found herself in her old bedroom, neatly tucked in bed. She sat up and yawned and stretched, only faintly recalling the events from the previous night. A minute later, Luna and Luann walked in. "Well, look who's finally up," said Luna. "You went out like a light after you got home," said Luann. "You must have had one heck of a drive." A moment later, Lucy walked in to join them. And just like that, all of Lori's memories came flooding back. "Gah! Leave me alone, you little monster!" she yelped, throwing up her hands. "Whoa, dude, chill!" cried Luna, rushing to her side. "Shut up! I saw what she did to Lynn!" Luna sighed, wrapped her arms around her big sister, and started rubbing her back. "Shh," she whispered. "It's alright, dude. Lynn is fine. Everyone's fine." As if on cue, Lynn burst in, jumped on Luann's head, and snuck a perfect landing. "Heck yeah, I am," she said, puffing out her chest. The tension in Lori's body relaxed a bit once she saw Lynn was alive and well, but the gruesome imagery from the previous night was still fresh in her mind. "Anyway, we gotta go get ready for today," said Luann. "There's pancakes in the kitchen whenever you're ready for breakfast." With all that, all the sisters fled out of the room, except for Lucy, who stayed behind. Since the two of them were alone, they stared at each other for a long, uncomfortable spell, with Lucy bearing a manageable smile. Lori's breaths started to grow shallow. She silently pleaded with Lucy to break the silence, to end the suspense. Eventually she did. "Pretty scary, huh?" she asked. "Pretty scary?" cried Lori. "Lucy, it was traumatizing. What were you and the others thinking? God, we'd probably get sued if you ever tried that on anyone in our neighborhood. Lucy's smile flipped into a frown as soon as Lori started yelling at her. It only grew more pronounced as she ranted on. But it was meant for the neighborhood, she said. It was meant for you. I wanted to show you that I could still be scary when I really tried. She then bowed her head, clasping her hands behind her back. But I think I may have gone too far. A little bit, yeah, said Lori. Lucy, there's a difference between, And Eerie began to diminish the longer she stared at her sister's guilt-written face. Lucy, come here, she said with a sigh. Lucy took slow, heavy breaths and steps in her direction. As soon as she was in arm's length, Lori reached over and gently grasped her shoulders. I love you. I think the world of you. Please don't ever think you have to prove your worth to me, because you don't. Understand? She nodded before leaning back in and wrapping her arms around her eldest sister. The two shared a warm embrace for about a minute before Lucy spoke again. I'm sorry, she whispered. You're forgiven, said Lori. And I'm sorry for what I said last week. I didn't mean to belittle you. It's okay, Lori. I know you didn't. But there's just something I'd like to keep you in mind. What's that? Suddenly, Lucy's embrace tightened up into an iron grin. Don't ever call me cute again.